Welcome to Spooky Reviews from Spooky Ventures. This is the 27th edition, and this time I'm looking at the new Blu-Ray release from Arrow Films of Death Screams. Now, Death Screams was originally released in 1982, and it was part of the initial burst of slasher films that had been started by the brilliant Halloween from John Carpenter. As talked about in the making of video that is included as a bonus feature here, there were a few things about slasher films that made them so attractive to filmmakers. They were reasonably easy to do, they were cheap to produce, and they could often be rewarded with box office gold. Now, I'm not so certain that this movie actually did very well at the box office, but it should also be mentioned that the movie has gone under the titles House of Death and Night Screams. A number of VHS copies had that first alternate title of House of Death. The movie is not one of the better slasher films, but in retrospect it really is an interesting piece of nostalgia and has a few things about it that are pretty interesting. First, just the fact that David Nelson, who was one of the sons of Ozzie and Harriet, directs the film is pretty interesting. Given the nudity and violence in the movie, that seems a big contrast to his wholesome image from that show. One of the earliest kills is also one of the most interesting ones. There's a young lady who is hit with an arrow in broad daylight. Well, just the fact that the attack in daylight makes it stand out. That arrow isn't actually what kills her. For some strange reason, she wanders into carnival grounds and gets onto a merry-go-round, again, that is extremely and inexplicably devoid of people. The killer then puts a plastic bag over her head, calling to mind Black Christmas to me. The scene of her body facing backwards on the merry-go-round as it turns is such a powerful one. In fact, that scene, unlikely as it is one of the most intriguing bits of the whole movie. Beyond that, you get your typical slasher film fare of teenage kids, often undressed, or at least the females undressed, getting picked off by a killer in various ways. There's a bit of a twist at the end in terms of who the killer is, but I won't spoil that for you. Even if you overlook the overused tropes, and I mean, those are really part of the magic of this kind of movie, so I wouldn't consider them detriments, but rather features. There are some issues with the film. First, the opening kill is hard to see, and the methodology of that kill remains a mystery throughout the movie. If you watch the documentary that I mentioned, it's explained, but that's the only way I know what happened. Part of the problem with that scene is a recurrent issue in the movie. Much of the film is too dark, making it hard to figure out what's going on at times. Beyond that, there's a large section of the film that takes place at the carnival that I mentioned previously. It helps to establish characters and create a sense of tranquility and fun to serve as a contrast to the violence later, but it goes on a little too long with some pointless stuff in it. Because of the length of the carnival stuff, the movie tends to drag, with the opening kill and a couple suspenseful moments early being the only horror-based stuff until quite late in the movie. Once the killing starts, though, it becomes a bit of a bloodbath, with inventive kills running one after another. All in all, I'd consider this a pretty average slasher film for the period, with some moments of brilliance. That said, the whole nostalgia element of those kinds of films really brings some charm to even the weakest of the bunch, and this is definitely not the weakest. It's nice that it's gotten such a classy release from Arrow to bring it in front of new audiences while letting fans relive it with style. Spooky Ventures is the home for spooky content and spooky merchandise on the web. Check it out today at spookyventures.com. And remember, always keep it spooky.